What is up, guys? EvilDuoSarm here today, and today I have for you a video where we're going to be looking at one of the biggest questions I get all the time in Blade & Soul, and that is how elemental damage functions, how it affects your DPS, and how it impacts your character. This video is going to be part of a multi-part series where I go over all the different stats in Blade & Soul and kind of give you an idea on how they impact your character and what you can do to get the maximum DPS out of your character and all that great stuff. So for this video, we're going to need to open up the character status menu by pressing P and the I key to press open up our inventory for some quick maths here. What I'm going to be doing is in the fire element, but this applies to all of your elements. It also applies to the quick shot skill of the gunslinger, but once again, also applies to all of your skills, everything that you can think about. So anyway, what is elemental damage? Let's start off with that first basic question. Basically what it is a flat bonus to all of your skills. So if I go ahead and open up the play infographic and I go over my quick shot skill, you'll see that it does about 7,900 damage. Basically what's going to happen is if I go ahead and put on this fire ring, so as you can see my flame damage is at 106%. If we go ahead and put on the flame ring, it bumps up to 116%. If I go ahead and hit the K menu again, and you will see that my skill has bumped up to 8,600 damage on quick shot. Basically about a 700, 800 point increase there. So yeah, it's a flat increase based on the percent. It just straight up multiplies across your skills. So the bigger question is, how does it interact with other skills? And each of these skills will go into a little more detail when we get to their skills. But basically the two biggest skills that interact with the elemental damage skill are your critical damage and your attack power. So we're going to start with critical damage first. Basically, as you add elemental damage to your character, you're going to notice a reduction in critical damage. It's just something that comes with the territory. The accessories have a lower critical damage until you get your full BT set. So what is your breaking point? What should you stop using critical damage versus elemental damage? What's the breaking point there? So I went ahead and put together a handy dandy spreadsheet, because you know how much I love spreadsheets, where I went ahead and did the elemental damage versus critical damage, assuming a 50% crit chance. Basically, how it works out is that you need about for every 10% increase in elemental damage. So if we go back to Blade & Soul real quick, I apologize for jumping back and forth. If we go ahead and put on my flame earring, you'll notice I jump up another 10% compared to with just that. So you'll see I went from 116% to 125%, about another 10% increase. So adding elemental accessories is about a 10% jump, those first two accessories anyway. After that, we're going to get into a little bit more detail what your percentage is. But anyway, so in this little sheet here, you see going from 105 to 115, 125, so 10% intervals. And we're also showing a decrease of crit damage by 10% intervals, and then the actual minimum is the last step. So anyway, working through this, the equation to go ahead and calculate your assumed damage at 50% crit rate is 0.5 times your elemental damage times the base damage, and we're assuming quick shot does 5,000 damage to make the math easy. 0.5, and then add that to 0.5, 50% chance of doing 2.5 times your damage, your critical damage rate, times your base damage, times the flame damage. It's not too crazy math here. So you just add those two together, 50% of each chance, and you go ahead and get your result. With that being said, as you increase flame damage but decrease crit damage, you'll still notice a trending upwards increase. At a certain point, you're actually going to end up getting more crit damage when you get both your BT accessories. If I hop in and hit both my shadow accessories on here, you will see that my crit damage is once again returned back to 254%, while still giving me 128% shadow damage. So you'll notice a point where you're going to be getting all the best of all the best worlds. So this really only applies for the earlier stages. Anyway, so what's the breaking point where it's like, oh my god, this is terrible, I shouldn't do it? It turns out that at 125% of your elemental damage, you'd need to lower your crit damage by a whopping 28%. So from 240% to 212% to notice similar damages. So safe to say you can increase that flame damage by quite a bit before your crit damage applies or comes into too much of an impact. So it's looking about 10% for about 20% of crit damage, 10% to 25% crit damage ratio. So if your flame or elemental damage increases by 10%, you can go ahead and allow your crit damage to decrease by about 20% and still see the same damage. Okay, so that is the critical damage stat. How does it interact with attack power now? So attack power, as you know, is what everybody looks for in this game, and they all want maximum attack power, but really it is more coming down to your elemental damage. So every single skill in the game has a base AP scaling. Quickshot's base AP scaling is 5.1. If you want to see your skills AP scaling, head over to bnstree.com, look at the skills, and then look at the hover over it, and you'll see Quickshot right there. It tells me it's a 5.1 times 10, or 5.1 times AP scaling. Twin Barrel scales with 1.5%, Firefall scales with 8.1 times AP. So yeah, you can go ahead and look at all these skills and make the same calculation. So once again, heading back over to the Quickshot AP scaling here, we're assuming 5.1 AP scaling, we're assuming 1,000 AP to make the math easy. So our base damage will be 5,100, our assumed base damage. So at 105% fire damage and 1,000 AP, which is basically your base stuff, just getting fresh out the story and putting your Hog Moon points in, you will be seeing your quick shot doing as 5100 times 1.05 rather, is 5355. So you'll be doing that as your base damage, 5,355. That 5,355, if you're actually looking to calculate, is the number you plug in for the 5,000 here and the 5,000 here, if you want to go through and calculate your own skills. Alright, so now let's say we bumped up our fire damage by 10%, but we lost 10 AP. So we're 990 AP, but we increased fire damage by 10%, which is basically what happens when you put your BT accessories on. It's 5.1 times 999, or 990 rather, multiplied by 1.15, the flame damage scaling. And that works out to 5,800 damage, so about a 400 point increase in your damage. So what's the breaking point on this one? How much flame damage percent do you need to increase versus AP lost? Looks like at about 1,000 AP, if we went up by 2% flame damage, so from 105 to 107% fire damage, lost the 10 AP, we would still be gaining about 50 attack damage per skill or per hit. Everything will be doing 50 more damage. So it's still a DPS increase at about a scale of 2% per 10 AP is your ratio there. Of course, this varies. The higher your AP is, the more impacted the fire damage or the shadow damage, whatever skill you're using, whatever elemental damage you have, the more impactful it is at higher APs. Likewise, lower AP, you're going to need more elemental damage before you start seeing a benefit from it. But as a general little rule of thumb, to give yourself an idea, 2% to 10 seems like a good ratio for me to feel confident in saying, go ahead, that would be a good number to think about. But once again, it varies slightly based on your AP. Anyway, guys, that is basically it. That is how elemental damage interacts with your character, how it interacts with other skills, and how it overall impacts your DPS. So as a rule of thumb, you basically want this number as high as possible without compromising AP or critical damage, of course, like anything. However, due to the nature of the elemental damage, it has more wiggle room than other stats, so to say. If you were to increase or decrease to increase your DPS. That critical damage, like you saw there, is about a 20%, 25% you can afford to lose per 10% of damage there. And then likewise with AP, it's only 10 AP per about 2%. So anyway, guys, I hope you found the video useful. I hope it gives you an idea on how these stats apply and impact it. And if you did like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out some of the other stuff that I have on the game, a whole bunch of stats. And once again, I will be going over all the different stats in the game to make it easier for everybody to understand how they all interact. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.